Well, we want to know where we're headed, right? Because we have fundamental transformation, but nobody ever wants to tell you where we're headed. Well, we're headed for a progressive utopia. Well, are there any examples of progressive utopias? Well, utopias, no, but progressive examples, yes. What does progressive rule really look like? Well, the president is talking about race relations, and he's talking about race relations because he doesn't want you to notice that the utopia that has been created by progressives all around the country, these progressive cities are crumbling to the ground, and we as a nation are next. Detroit has been circling the drain for years. We all know about it. We talked about their demise when I was on Fox, but now they're finally, getting down to business. Detroit last week filed for bankruptcy, owing more than 100,000 different creditors. They face a debt of $20 billion. Give you some perspective, that's about $25,000 per person. Don't worry, as a nation, yours is only, I believe, $65,000 currently per person for the national debt. The city's unemployment rate is now more than double the national average of 16%. Okay, why Detroit? Well, Detroit is a great example because progressives have been in control of Detroit for 51 years, 6 months, and 20 days. 1962 was the beginning of the progressive rule. At the time, Motown was there, and this was a thriving city. Detroit at the time had the highest per capita income in the entire nation. Back then, there were 296,000 manufacturing jobs. It was the nation's fourth largest city with a population of over 2 million people. That's the year the progressives started out. Now let's look. What has happened? 18,829 days later. It's quite a different story. Between 2000 and 2010, the state lost 48% of all of their manufacturing jobs. Today, there are less than 27,000 manufacturing jobs left. The police force has been cut back by 40%. Many of the stations are closed 16 hours a day in Detroit. The average response time, if you call 911, average is 58 minutes. Average. The violent crime rate in Detroit is 5 times higher than the national average. The murder rate in Detroit, 11 times higher than New York City. Crime has gotten so bad in Detroit, even the police are telling people, enter Detroit at your own risk. There are now in Detroit 78,000 abandoned homes. Abandoned homes just like this one, 78,000. So you have some perspective on that number. That's enough to house every single person in Trenton, New Jersey. Every single person in Boulder, Colorado. And many of the houses are priced at $500 or less. Parks are being abandoned. 2/3 of the city parks have been permanently closed down since the president came into office. 47% of Detroit's residents are now functionally illiterate. How are you going to get a job if you're illiterate? 60% of children live in poverty. The population has plummeted to 700,000 people. It continues to shrink as one person moves out of Detroit every 22 minutes. Could you blame them? Who could? Well, MSNBC could. Actually, they said Detroit's collapse was a result of a government that was too small.
This is what it looks like when government is small enough to drown in your bathtub, and it is not a pretty picture.
Too small of a government. Detroit currently maintains 13,000 government workers. It has 22,000 retirees. Their health care benefits cost $200 million every year. Pensions are 25% in the city's spending. In 3 years, that number will be 50%. This is what a progressive utopia looks like. This is what happens when you put in progressive policies. This is why the president is talking about anything but the economy or jobs. This is why Michael Bloomberg is always talking about taking the escalator, that's his latest, or trying to get people just to exercise or move the cigarettes in the back. Because if you paid attention to how badly he's destroying the city of New York, people might have a different conversation. Let me give you the hard, cold facts. City after city. Progressive results are exactly the same. In the last 65 years, these cities combined have been controlled by progressives more than 90%. city of Chicago, is so strapped for cash that it is planning to close 54 public schools. And we all know, except for Sharpton, apparently, about the violence problem. 54 is also the number of people who were shot dead in Chicago during the Zimmerman trial. 54. Did you hear about that? 76% of the victims were black. Hello, Al. East St. Louis has a murder rate of 17 times higher than the national average. Baltimore, another progressive city, facing $3.2 billion in unfunded liabilities. New York City, you want to know why he wants to talk about trans fats? New York City has doubled the amount of people on food stamps, 1 million to 2 million people in the last 5 years. And the number of homeless has gone up 20% in the last year. That's New York. That's just some of these cities. Unfortunately, our country is being run by progressives, and America will suffer the same tragic fate if it continues to follow the progressive footsteps. Where is the justice for American citizens of all races who are forced to live under these conditions? One thing for sure, justice can definitely not be found in progressive policies.